there, Christine Glover, here to share my August reading, writing wrap-up. A little bit earlier this time, I'm getting my act together. I spent a lot of time in August reading, basically binge reading everything that I could get my paws on by Lisa Kleypas. I absolutely love her historical books, and I actually also read one of her contemporary series. That was also very good too. So to start off, basically, I'm still reading everything by Lisa Kleypas. I guess I'm on a roll here. The first series that I read was the Friday Harbor series. It's a contemporary romance, a little bit different, has some mystical elements in it. And the reason I chose that one was because I really wanted to read about the Puget Sound, Seattle area. We were supposed to go to Vancouver to celebrate our anniversary in August. We were supposed to go to a wedding in August. And I love that area. I love the Pacific Northwest. So I thought I'd read something set in Puget Sound. And it's in an island off the coast. And it's about three brothers, Mark, Sam, and Alex Nolan. Each of them have very interesting and unique careers. They're the sons of alcoholic parents who were not very caring for them. And they grow up with a sister named Victoria, who unfortunately dies in a car accident. And that is the impetus for the first book that I read, which was called Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor. In that story, Mark Nolan, the oldest brother, goes to his sister's funeral and he learns he has been given guardianship and custody over her only child, a little girl, very precocious little girl named Holly. So there's a nice tie-in to the Christmas theme, which is always good. And he takes on the responsibility, moves to a ramshackle kind of old mansion that his other brother Sam is living in while he's tending his vineyards. And his other brother, Alex, is an architect and he helps them with like little fixes here and there. He's the most damaged of the three brothers, the youngest brother. But at any rate, it's a really cool trilogy, and I really loved how she brought all of these brothers together. And then the fourth book is about one of the local B&B owners, actually a witch named Justine Hoffman. Her story is a really super magical story. It's very different. It has a lot of paranormal elements. All four of the stories really do have some paranormal elements or mystical, magical elements, but for the most part, they're straight contemporary romances with a little bit of a twist. So in the first book, Mark meets Maggie. She is a toy store owner, and they hit it off, but she is a widow and her first husband died of cancer, so it was a very hard death, and she just doesn't want to lose herself with another man again. So their journey towards their happily ever is also colored by the fact that he does have guardianship over Holly, and they finally do find a way to be together, and it's a wonderfully written story. Then you move into the next story, which is Sam's story. He's a vineyard owner, and he hooks up with a glass artist named... I was smart this time and wrote down the names. Okay, so the book that I just told you about is called Christmas Eve at Friday Harbor. So that's Mark and Maggie's story. And I really love the way, honestly, that they tied everything together, that the different elements of the brothers and the characters that surround them in their lives are really well drawn. It's just a beautifully written series. The second book in the series is called Rain Shadow Road, and it's about Sam's story, and his heroine is a lady named Lucy. She's a glass artist, and she just got dumped by her boyfriend. She has serious self-esteem issues because her younger sister got all the attention and she didn't get any. And so she has a lot of things that she has to work through. She meets Sam while she's out looking at the ocean or something, and they hit it off, kind of. She and he start sort of seeing each other. She hurts herself, and she ends up living in the same house for a while as Sam and Mark. So she gets to know Maggie, she gets to know Mark. Mark and Maggie are now engaged. So it's like not like everybody ends up getting married at the end of every book. It just keeps weaving through the story, weaving through the sons' lives. So then she gets to meet Alex, who is in the third book, and that book is called Dream Lake, and it's where things really start getting super magical, because Alex is an architect. He's been in a lousy marriage, and he is struggling with his alcohol intake. He is starting to drink a lot more. He is dependent upon alcohol. He doesn't really realize it because he's still functioning quite well, but he's basically alone. And what happens is he gets haunted by a ghost. And the ghost is a great character, somebody that died back in the war, Second World War, and I love the character. And so there's a mystery of solving who the ghost is, how he's related to the mansion, haunting Mark's mansion, or Mark's house, which ends up being Sam's house. And so when Alex comes, I guess he's so broken that the ghost sort of attaches himself to Alex. And then Alex meets this gal named Zoe, who is a wonderful cook, and she kind of basically brings him back to himself. She nurtures him. And the reason why he works with her is because she has a grandmother who is diagnosed with a really lousy case of some form of dementia that will quickly accelerate into where she has to be in a lockdown facility. And her grandmother basically cared for her whole life because her parents basically abandoned her. So she's got abandonment issues too. So he offers to renovate this cottage for her so that she can have her grandmother with her temporarily until her grandmother no longer can function at all and has to be in this lockdown. In the meantime, we're solving the mystery of the ghost. Somehow throughout all of this, Alex gets control over his demons. Zoe and he find out who the ghost is and how the ghost is related to them. And it has a beautiful, wonderful ending. So then we get to see Mark and Maggie get married. Sam and Lucy are together, and now they're together. So the next person that comes up is Justine Hoffman in the book Crystal Cove. And Justine is a witch, but she doesn't realize how powerful of a witch she is. And she's hooked up with this guy named Jason. The interesting thing about Jason is that he has no soul, according to what the witches can see in him. He has no soul. And so he's actually gone to stay for a corporate retreat with his employees at the bed and breakfast. And his real intention is to steal Justine's book of magic so he can figure out how to get a soul again. But in the process of doing that, he falls madly in love with Justine. Big problem is, if a witch takes a mate, the mate usually dies. There's a price to be paid. So Justine doesn't want him to get killed or die because of her, so she tries to stay away from him. And so it's an interesting dilemma, and they have to figure out how to be together without him dying suddenly because she made the mistake of falling in love with him. So she's a very powerful witch. It's an interesting story, and if you like those kind of elements, I highly recommend all 4 books, but for sure read the first one. It's just a darling story. I loved that book a lot, and Holly was an intriguing, fun girl to watch. She really had a unique personality, and Miss Kleypas is just so good at character development. It's unbelievable. It's probably why I keep reading her stories, because she's just amazing. Then the next series I read was the Hathaway series, and that is a very fun historical Regency series with some dark elements to it. A family of sisters with a Roma adopted brother, Kev, and with another brother who is losing himself in debaucherous behavior because his fiance died of scarlet fever and she died in his arms. They suddenly come out of they're like in a genteel family. They're just a very smart family with lots of, intellectual pursuits. They're very different. They don't belong in high society, but Leo inherits a title. And so they go to Hampshire to claim this manor, which is falling apart, and the story builds from there with each of the siblings getting their own love story. So the first love story starts with Mine Till Midnight. That's the first book, and it's Cam and Amelia's story. Cam is featured in some other books that Lisa's written. She has a great way of weaving the characters together, even though they don't actually interact with each other a whole lot from series to series. There is some interaction, so you kind of get a taste of some of the other characters that you've fallen in love with before. You get to see them again in their new worlds. So that's really fun. So basically, she's in London with Kev, trying to find her brother, who's at a famous gaming place that is called Jenner's. And when she goes there, Cam is sort of like the big, he's like this Roma guy, and he's supposed to stop people from not coming in. He's supposed to kick people out. And he's also extremely wealthy because he has this curse of attaining wealth. So he refuses to give her entry, and she's like, I'm going in. And so that's the first moment they meet. And from that point forward, they just fall in love. And he helps her with her family. He helps her with rebuilding the manor, which is falling apart. And it's a beautiful love story. And he actually becomes sort of like the de facto leader of the entire family. Even Leo succeeds to him. Each hero has his own special gifts and talents to bring, but he is really the center of, he and Amelia are the center of the nucleus of that family. So then the next book is her younger sister Winifred's story. Winifred got scarlet fever as well, and Kev and Winifred have known each other since Winifred found him and brought him home when he was a young boy. And he saved her life, but as a consequence, she had very poor health afterwards, so she couldn't do a whole lot. So she goes over to the continent with Leo, and who is now slowly finding his way back to himself, and she gets a cure, and she comes back home to Hampshire, and she brings the doctor with her, or no, she doesn't bring the doctor, but the doctor that healed her has interest in her, but he's not exactly a nice guy. So we don't like him for Win, as they call her in the book. So Win is madly in love with Kev, but Kev's afraid that he'll hurt her because if she has a baby, she's been told she could die in childbirth, and she doesn't want him to not be with her because of that. So she kind of fudges the truth a little bit, and he just can't resist her. I mean, they've really been in love since they were kids. They just grew up together, and he tried to not be with her, but truthfully, he is meant to be with her. In the course of that story, we find out how Kev and Cam are related to each other, and we also find out that Kev is going to have a peerage in Ireland. So there's just a lot of really unique twists. So together they're rebuilding the Hampshire property, they're helping the tenants, they're creating wealth, they're just building and building and building. So then in the third book, that is going to be Poppy's story. That's their younger sister, and she's a very fun, active, wonderful human being, and that story is called Tempt Me at Twilight. She hooks up with this hotelier who is Harry Rutledge, and he is reclusive. He's originally from the United States, and he ends up wanting her, but he doesn't want to fall in love with her. So it's an interesting, unique story because they come together. The guys don't even like Harry. Like Cam and Kev are like, no, 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 no. Leo's like, But at the end of the day, they get what they want and they get each other. It's a wonderful story. It really starts off fun, and she's chasing this ferret around named Dodger. That's her younger sister Beatrix's pet, because she's like totally into animals, and we get her story last, and it's a really beautiful story as well. So that story was really, really good, and I loved it. So I just kept on reading. So the next book was the story of the companion that they hired to help these young women, Poppy and Beatrix, be able to fit into society and go to have a season and find a husband. Well, Beatrix is very unique and very different kind of a person, so it's hard for her. Meanwhile, the person that they hired, Kat Marks, isn't who she lets them think she is. She's actually got a big secret, and that is revealed in Married by Morning, book 4, and that's Leo's love interest. So that story I'm not going to tell you too much about because I don't want to reveal everything. You need to read them to know what all the secrets are, but they're really, really good. And again, Miss Kleypas does a wonderful job of interweaving all of these different stories, all of these different characters, giving you glimpses into who they are personality-wise, so their stories are very believable, and you really feel like you know these people. She's really good at character development. So then the next book is Beatrix's book, and that one is Love in the Afternoon. Now, Beatrix walks to the beat of her own drummer. She's a unique, clever woman who is not going to fit into society at all. So who's the worst person that could possibly be her hero? Well, this guy that's in society that's, like a hero. He's a war hero, the whole 9 yards. And at one time she had even heard him say that she belonged in a stable, and it insulted her, and she was made fun of for that. And then he goes off to war, and he comes back, and he's a different man. And in the meantime, she starts corresponding with him, pretending to be the woman that he thought he wanted to marry or be with when he came home from the war. And so she reveals herself and her heart to him, And then she realizes that she's fallen in love with this soldier, and she's basically telling him she's someone, that she's another person. So she stops writing him. He comes back. He claims his home again, but he's very broken. He suffers from severe PTSD. So she sort of helps him deal with this little dog that he had out in the battlefield. They become friends of sorts. And when the truth comes out, things get a little dicey. And also he's worried about accidentally hurting her while he's sleeping because he has terrible nightmares. So they have a lot to work through, but I really love Beatrix's story with this particular hero, Christopher. He grows so much, and she is just awesome. I really love her. So that's a wonderful series to read, the Hathaway books. I highly recommend them. I'll drop a link to Miss Kleypas's website so you can go over and take a look at them and see if there's any others that you might want to read. I've basically been reading just about everything that she's written. I kind of go on tears. So right now I'm on a Lisa Kleypas tear. So that's my reading for August. I'm reading a spiritual book right now. It's a spiritualism book right now, so I'm actually listening it to on Audible. And I'm reading the Bow Street Runners series that Lisa wrote. So I'm on the third and last book of that. Wah. So we'll see. I'll tell you more about those books next time around. In writerly world, I had hoped to finish my third book for the Crush series by the end of August, but I decided to give myself some breaks and actually do some fun things so that I could have a kind of a life during the pandemic, or as my girlfriend likes to call it, the pandamit. I like that one. So basically I gave myself the weekends off, and that meant it took me a little longer to write, but I also feel like I was more enthusiastic about the writing when I came to it on Monday morning. Like, I work Monday through Friday, and that is that. There's just too many other things that I'm juggling right now. I did complete the book as of this taping. It was sent last week to my critique partner, Carmen Falcone, and then I'll get it back from her probably with lots of notes because I think I rushed the end. Ha ha ha, sorry about it. And so that one's out of my hair for a while. And then I also finished a Brotherhood Protectors Crush crossover novella for the Brotherhood Protectors world that I write in for L. James. And that book is called Tempted by Her Rescuer. So that's a novella. So that one is also in Carmen's hands, and I'm waiting for my notes on that. I told her to read that one first because it's a little less tricky, a little less complicated, and I need a break from the third book. So those two are done. Now I'm currently working on the fourth book. It's running somewhat concurrently with the third book. I've got my heroine and my hero figured out, at least the names. I know my heroine's background quite well. I've been doing some character analysis and studies on her. So that's where I'm at right now with my writing, and I'm hopeful that I can get some new words written on the fourth book before I get my notes back from Carmen, because then it'll be revision land. That's got to happen. I do have some books releasing probably at the end of this month. I rebranded my Sweetbriar Spring series, and they're going to come out as Red Hot Heroes. There's been some changes made in the narrative to kind of make one of the heroes a little less of an asshat, because I softened him up a little bit for the publisher that I sold it to, but he needed a little more work. And there were some continuity issues that I wanted to fix that I couldn't do until I got my hands on it again. So I did that. So that's a Red Hot Reunion. The first book is Red Hot Fling. That's about Jesse and Blake's story. So I'll tell you more about those books when they release. I'm looking forward to getting them back out in the world. I love the stories. I love everything about that little series. I had planned on writing a lot more for it, but life happened, and publishing isn't always what you think it's going to be. So we just had to roll with the punches a little bit. So that's my reading and writing wrap up for August. I hope you enjoyed learning about the books I read, and that you'll take a peek at them on Miss Kleypas's website. She's an amazing author, and I'm pretty much gobbling up everything that she has out there. So I highly recommend her. I hope you are doing well and that you're safe and healthy. If you have any suggestions for good family saga kind of series, Regency or contemporary romance, I would love to hear them from you. Please drop a comment and I'll respond and I'll check them out. If you like the video, just give me a thumbs up. Or if you want to see more of me talking about life in general and my writing and my reading and what I'm doing, then you can subscribe to my channel. I try to keep these things a little bit short because I know we're all busy. I'm thinking about all of you out there, and I hope you're well. Bye.